what is up, guys? It's your boy Bernie here along with Sean.
What's up, guys? Welcome back.
And today, guys, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We got two things to talk about, but the first one is going to be very interesting because it has to do with a financial takeover that could or could not be happening in the Premier League. As you know, the Premier League is one of the richest soccer leagues in the world. I mean, besides, La Liga and many other places like that. We are now seeing a huge issue coming in from Newcastle United as the owners were trying to sell their team to the Saudi Arabian government, but more likely the Prince of Saudi Arabia. And a lot of the owners, a lot of the Premier League has stayed completely silent, but it seems like the deal has been null and void, but there's still hopes for many of the clubs. And I just want to read a quick article for you guys before, Sean, we share our thoughts and opinions on it. Basically, it talks about how at least two Premier League clubs were implacably opposed to the failing of the Saudi Arabia takeover of Newcastle United. The top 10 remain dead against the deal, seeing that the potential influence of the Saudi Arabian government as a dangerous development in the English football and in the influx of oil money as potential threat to the integrity of the competition. On Monday night, hopes rose on Tyneside that stalled the buyout could be resurrected. Of course, reading more in the article, it kind of goes down here. Sorry to kind of keep cutting it here and there. But I just want to read this last part. The objection goes beyond the Premier League, though. Two influential clubs, understood to be Liverpool and Tottenham, are keen to keeping PIF out of the English game. There is disquiet about a state-owned entity running the top-flight team. And so, reading that and kind of talking about this whole situation, Sean, what do you make of what's going on with not only Newcastle, but in terms of the Premier League itself, not allowing this deal to happen, it looks like?
Yeah, so when we're talking about this Saudi operation to take over the Newcastle team, what's important to know is that the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is PIF in that article, is literally chaired by Mohammed bin Salman, that is the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. And so when looking at how soccer has worked super hard to try and keep its integrity intact and get, cheating and corrupt financial influence out of the public specter there and in the competitions, I think Saudi Arabia coming in and allowing a government to take over a soccer team completely would be a huge mistake for the Premier League. When you look at it, a lot of people already complain that Man City is buying, their spot in Champions League and just buying the best players. They don't really earn it. But if you want to talk about that, if Newcastle was actually bought by the Saudi Public Investment Fund and Mohammed bin Salman, they would be worth $320 billion at their disposal. And so looking at Man City, their owner's worth $23 billion. So that's more than 10 times more than Man City has. And when we talk about the Saudi Public Investment Fund, the royal family in Saudi Arabia is worth multiple $1 trillion. And so they can continuously restock this. They'd be able to buy all the best players in the world. And Saudi Arabia doesn't have a great track record as far as corruption goes. And so what this could lead to is, obviously undue influence involving all that oil money into the sport. And so I think the reason that these teams are getting upset about it is because not only would they just be able to buy all the best players, which I'm sure is a big thing. I'm sure Newcastle fans would love that. They'd love to have that kind of money at their disposal. But you also have to look at, is this going to be fair? Do we really want to allow governments to start purchasing Premier League teams or teams in soccer? To me, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Sean, I think it's a very interesting topic to bring up when you talk about the Saudi Arabia family. And I think Newcastle fans especially are going to be upset about this because we all know that we want to be the club that wants to have all the money in the world, able to buy whatever players we want. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality. I mean, it's the reality of some clubs, right? Whether it's Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Man City now, and even Man United. But Man United's a little different. I mean, they have some Saudi influence in there. But I think what the frustrating part about it would be, and I'm just talking about this from a perspective of the Newcastle fans, is that your club has been kind of average or below average, throughout their whole premiership these last 10 years. And you want something amazing to happen, right? You want them to challenge for the top four. Newcastle is a very historically big club. And what I find, and I would 100% agree with that. If Liverpool, my team, was in the same side, or if our friends Arsenal team was, dealing with the same situation, they would all love to kind of get this sort of influx of money. I mean, there was talks before Liverpool's group was going to get bought by a Chinese company a couple years back before they got bought by the Americans, and even the Americans were thinking about selling their team, but you kind of saw the process of how Liverpool did it and what they had to do to become what they are today. I mean, they didn't do the whole, we're just going to throw a lot of money in there and see what happens. They actually took their time, invested in the right players, invested first in the right coach in Jurgen Klopp, which I think speaks without a doubt as one of the best Premier League and even just managers in the whole world. I mean, Pep Guardiola is there too, but Pep Guardiola has a different perceived notion about him. But, just kind of going back to the whole, corruption thing. I mean, we saw what happened with Man City and what their corruption case was looking like, right? They spent, all this money. The bookings were finding that, hey, these numbers don't align up. And all they got hit with was a $10 million fine, which, is like basically admitting you're guilty, but just not really, taking the punishment for it. Meanwhile, you have a team like Sheffield Wednesday. I can't know if they're like in League One or League Two of English soccer. Who I got a 12-point deduction for doing the exact same thing as Man City. And obviously, granted, it was UEFA looking at Man City and not the Premiership. So we might get a whole different situation when it comes to when Man City gets looked at by the Premiership. And I know that they've been now trying to look into that. But if they find no wrongdoing, then I'm going to call the hypocrisy of it. And, why not allow a Newcastle to get bought up then?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of Newcastle fans will probably be arguing here. I just think that it's important to draw a distinction between, someone like Man City having a really rich owner and then a team like Newcastle getting bought by an entire, country's government. And so when people say, because some people say there's a distinction like, oh, the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia, that's not government owned. It's just, a pool of money essentially, but you have to look, it's chaired by the crown prince of the royal family. It's one of the most powerful people in the world. And so when you have that type of, money and power at your disposal, it's just going to mean bad things. Imagine if the United States government went and purchased, for instance, Sheffield United or whatever, some team. They'd be able to pool in trillions of dollars. And so then instantly they would be the most dominant club in football. And that would probably piss a lot of people off. And so, when it comes down to that, Saudi Arabia shouldn't be allowed to buy a stake, and there's more to even this that. If you look into the articles, they also have human rights groups that are condemning Saudi Arabia because they have yet to take responsibility for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, who was a U.S. resident and Turkish journalist who reported on the corruption of Saudi Arabia. He was murdered inside a Saudi Arabia consulate in Turkey. And it was all caught on film and recorded, so there is no getting out of it for Saudi Arabia, but they continue to deny it and refuse to take responsibility. And so that was another thing. They were lobbying the Premier League to not allow this deal to go through. And looking at the article too, there were a couple private equity groups that were helping to back, I think, the other 20% purchase of the team. And they were in an interview, one of the managing partners was crying, saying that it's not fair because the other teams were lobbying against this happening. Well, of course they're going to lobby against it. And it's kind of hilarious that you would cry when you're, working with a regime that abuses human rights and is going to put trillions of dollars into the Premier League just to take it over. And it's going to make it less competitive. And, as I said, there's a big difference between having a rich owner and getting completely bought by an entire country's fund.
Yeah, and I think another thing to add to that is, of course, the fact that there were some piracy issues with the Premier League games as well, that Saudi Arabia was just kind of allowing that stuff to happen, allowing another network that didn't have the rights to it to show the games. And, of course, the Premier League, they're not going to be happy about that. And the one thing I will say is that what I'm disappointed in the most is that the Premier League hasn't really came out and gave a definitive answer as to why. And if I'm a Newcastle fan, I know they've been petitioning for the Premiership to say something, and I agree with them in that aspect, right? I think Newcastle fans could understand to a point where they're saying, we don't care if the result was yes or no, just tell us why. And I think that's what a lot of fans, especially of Newcastle, are trying to get answers for. Is, you say that you didn't say anything to us about what's going on. You just kind of kept quiet this whole time. And the Premier League does need to say something. They need to either come out with a public statement or, whatever with their PR team, whatever finagling of words they can use, lawyer talk, whatever they can do to just say like, hey, this is the reason why we are not allowing the, FIP? Allowing FIP to just be, oh, what were you going to say, Sean?
Sorry, no, PIF.
PIF,
Public
FIP, PIF.
Yeah.
PIF to, they can't own Newcastle for a multitude of reasons. And I think if they were allowed to explain themselves, then I think Newcastle fans would be okay with it. The problem is that the Premiership, of course, has been quiet, and that's, making a lot of fans angry.
See, for me, I'm fine with the Premiership not saying anything about it or, kind of staying out of it. They're dealing with obviously a really powerful government. And when you're trying to have a government essentially buy your Premier League team, you can't complain that politics are in play. The politics of, these other top teams don't want it to happen. The politics of these other owners and, these other governing bodies, they don't want Saudi involved. That's unfair. But is it unfair? You're having a country, buy your club. You should expect for politics to be at play. And you shouldn't be able to complain about that happening. Because, if you have a government owning your team, you're essentially inviting, a debate and politics into your sport. And so for me, it's just, I approve of the decision to decline them. They can find another wealthy person to take over the club. I'm sure it won't even be that hard. They can find, another consortium to build up and do it. I'm sure there's other, maybe investors in the US that love to own a Premier League team. There's probably, other investors all over the world, but I just don't think, ethically speaking, it's right for Saudi Arabia, or even I saw Qatar was trying to get in on the bidding. I don't think it's right for, either of them to really go ahead and purchase a team. As it relates to Qatar, they bought their World Cup bid. And so we know that. And so that was corrupt in general. We already know that they're doing corrupt things, and they've had hundreds of people die while constructing their stadiums. And they don't care. They abuse human rights, and same with Saudi Arabia. So I just think it's, best for the sport to keep this out and just really shut it out right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Sean. There's no reason for, like you said, an owner, which is really a government, to have that much money investing into a club. And, they talked about, we're not going to do it all right away, but who knows? They could say that now and be, a lot of clubs could be like, yeah, that's fine, add them in. And then all of a sudden, next year you're seeing like the top players in the world in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Historically, they have some history there, but recently they're not one of the big clubs in the Premiership. They're one of the smaller clubs as it pertains to, success, fanship, maybe not fanship, I have to do a little more research to actually find the statistics, but when it comes to this, what I think is important, and you talked about it and you hit it spot on, is the fact that when you deal with a government, politics are going to get involved no matter what. It doesn't matter, whether, the Man City owner has some, dodgy history, or whether it's Sheffield United has some dodgy history. There's a lot of people, but when a government comes in, that's where people draw the line. And I think that, yes, Newcastle fans can be upset. They can be frustrated with what's going on. But I think you have to do the ethically right thing. And, if this was Liverpool, for example, having this sort of issue where a Saudi or like a government was just coming in to buy them, I would have the exact same response that I think a lot of other people would have. And that is, this should not happen. And I know that, we've seen some YouTubers and a lot of people get frustrated with what's going on. But this is the fact. Newcastle should not be allowed to have a country run it, and that's just simple as that. We can talk about the other stuff, the human rights stuff. We can talk about the piracy things, but at the end of the day, these owners don't want a 320 billion. $320 billion going into a club.
Meanwhile, it's a public investment fund, so they can continuously keep raising money with their oil prices and just increasing the amount of value they have.
Yeah, exactly. So, my last thing I'll say before I let you go, Sean, is, think about the implications of allowing a government to run a team, you know, and for us Americans, you know, let's say that was like an NBA team, you know, what if we had some other foreign government run an NBA team or run a baseball team? Like, we would probably be questioning the ethics and the morality of having that country run it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, although in baseball, like I would, you know, if Saudi Arabia wanted to buy the Mariners and, you know, pour $1 billion a year into our salary, you know, I would still turn it down. But you can just see, you know, that completely turn around a losing organization and turn them into a winning organization. But you have to be, you know, you have to really analyze where this money's coming from and what it is, because if you look at, you know, the past 5 years, Man City has spent about $640 million in transfers, which is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But at the same time, that's about like 0.15% of the Saudi investment fund. They put in $1 billion in a transfer window. That is 0.3% of their investment fund. Not even a full percent. So not even 0.5%. Yeah. It would just be insane.
Yeah, I mean, we could, you know, what if they were allowed to do this? You know, we could see Mbappe be in Newcastle, or, you know, one of the top players just come to Newcastle, where you're just like, is that really where they want to go? Obviously, you know, history and tradition is something else that a lot of players look into, as well as, you know, the money implication. But money does, you know, it affects a lot of people. When you see that much money, and, you know, you have an opportunity to kind of create generational wealth for not only you, but your families for the future here on out, whether they, you know, don't work a single day in their life, they'll be rich and have enough money to do whatever they want. And so, like you said, if Newcastle is allowed to have this much money, it would just create a whole mess. But we want to know your guys' opinion on the Newcastle story. You know, this was a mouthful. This is a long video, but it's kind of the interesting topic of it, right? You know, talking about the government getting involved. But we want to know, like I said, your guys' opinion on this video in the comment section down below. Should Newcastle have been bought out? Or should the Premier League have allowed this to happen? And what do you guys think of the implications of if they were allowed to have this deal go through? What would be the implications? Let us know in the comment section down below. But anyway, guys, this is going to do it here for the video. My name is Bernie. This is, of course, Sean, here on The Charge, giving you the latest soccer news and rumors, and also basketball. I keep saying basketball because it's ingrained. Soccer opinions, like I said, in the comment section down below. Please remember to like and subscribe. We are about a couple away from 700. Can we get to 1,000 by the end of August? That would be great. And anyway, guys, I've done enough babbling. I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Thanks, guys. Perfect. 1 second, I'm gonna order some food to get delivered.
Ooh, what you gonna get?
Some.
Stu, live,